Welcome, tarot readers, witches, spiritual seekers of all kinds. This is my life with tarot for February. I want to share with you a bit about my magical practice, the month that I had, the way that tarot assisted me during this time, the books that I read, just some of the different synchronicities that I experienced during this time. And so you will find that while many people make sort of a list, sorry, this is Namir, and she's always in here when I record, but for some reason right now she really wants to be in the mix. Some people, they kind of have a list that they run through, but I find that nature has no straight lines and that our stories are not straight lines. They're kind of circuitous. And so this video is going to be a bit like that. So strap in, grab yourself a nice hot beverage or cold beverage if you prefer. And let's talk about my life with tarot and what this month has really brought forward in me and my magical practice and just living and being. This was the goat moon. It runs from February 2nd to March 1st. And so the goat aura, and I have cat hair all over me. Oh my gosh. Who out there has cats? So, this is the milk moon, and if you know anything about the goat is a tenacious being, a being that chews through just about anything. Goats eat a lot. They take a lot of calories every day and consume a lot. And so this month was really intense for me. How many of you out there had a very intense month? I felt like the goat moon was just chewing through some aspects of my soul that really needed to be addressed and looked at. And so this was a very powerful and transformative time. As I record this, I am almost exactly a month away from my 50th birthday. And I think that too is really playing into the intensity of this time and the shift that I'm feeling. I had 13 decks that I ordered between mid-December and the end of January, believe it or not. Some of them are pre-orders and they'll be out, or they're Kickstarters, they'll be out in a long time. But one of the decks that I received in the mail was the Prisma Visions Tarot. Prisma Visions Tarot there. I was really excited to get this deck. I'd read a lot about it and seen people using it, and I thought, this is great. And so I decided that I would start a new series where I dedicated myself to a deck for the month and really did a deep dive that I would share with you. I started on the journey with this deck. And then there was a big twist, a big turn in the road. February is a very difficult month for me usually because this is the month that 10 years ago I realized that my mom was going to lose her fight with cancer. And so it was a very poignant month. And although in the last couple years, February has not been that big of a deal, it was a heart-wrenching month for me, filled with so much personal upheaval where I was really facing so much. And I think that was really linked to looking at my 50th birthday and feeling, in some ways feeling my own mortality and what that meant for me and how important it is for me to be present. And I've shared this before, if you haven't heard it, that my mom's final words to me were, have more fun. And so I've really just been looking at my life and really condensing things and seeing, and Goat Moon does this where we realize at this point of the year, and it's this point of not yet, it's this point of assessment where we really look at what am I going to carry forward? What within me wants to move forward in my life? What energies are, and for me, what energies are intrinsic to who I am, but also in alignment with my personal resonance, and therefore I'm going to carry forward into the year? And what energies am I leaving behind? And this has just been more significant and more profound with my 50th birthday. I was just so undone during this time. And I took on this tarot, which is a completely different, it's Rider-Waite system, but it's not Rider-Waite inspired at all. So it was very foreign. And at one point I was just so upset trying to draw cards in order to get some clarity. And I was just a wreck. And these cards were so unfamiliar. Like there was no comfort in these cards for me. And so I I tried to persist throughout the month with this deck, and then finally I was just like, I'm done. I need some comfort. I need something here that I can feel and be with and be present with. I do not need to try to forge a new path with a tarot right now. What I need is something that I can be present with. And so I had ordered the Wisdom of Avalon. I do have a walkthrough of this on my channel. I had ordered the Wisdom of Avalon, and to me, this was so in sync with what I was feeling, this deep call to nature, which is really my religion, honestly, as a witch or as a spiritual being. And in that place, I really found, the beauty of this oracle that just spoke to me in these profound ways that really felt so intrinsic to the memory that I was really dealing with, because this was a deeply ancestral month for me with my mom, and there was a connection to my lineage there and the memory that we hold, which brings me to the book that I read this month that I just cannot recommend enough. And, part of it is where I was at, but The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. This book was just so beautiful for me. It was based around Nordic traditions and the Nordic pantheon, but the women of the Nordic pantheon. And it was so beautiful, and it really brings to light the beauty of there were just some wonderful questions that it ignited within me in the dialogues between the main character and Loki in this book about, are we what we are remembered as? And here I am, I'm spending this time with my mother and her spirit that is passed. She died very, I guess not very young, but young, 62, and missing her and thinking about lineage and thinking about, what are we really, and how does memory and lineage really play into who we are, and how can I personally grab hold of that? And this book just allowed me to go into such a dreamy place. There's a huge aspect of motherhood in this book, and the claiming of that time, which was very nostalgic for me as I think about the fact that my children are older and I'm passing into this later point in my life. So it's such a beautiful book. It's so poetic. I can't tell you why this is such a page turner, because in a lot of ways it's about her mundane life as, I don't want to spoil anything, but as a witch. It's about her mundane life and the unraveling of the mystery of her lineage. And there are 3 parts to the book. It's absolutely beautiful. The crescendo of the second part of the book had me crying. It's such a good book. If you are looking for something, to bring you into that space of your ancient feminine self, I just cannot recommend The Witch's Heart enough. It is so beautiful. The other oracle deck that I really used that was brand new that I picked up was the Moon deck. This was so beautiful. This deck is beautiful. The cards in here are lovely. The pictures were so easy for me. And when I was in these fragile places where I just needed a word and I didn't want to do tarot, this was the perfect deck for me, because it has these affirmations. And so it takes you to a place where it just kind of takes your mind out of the way, and then you can let that affirmation just kind of flow over you and into you during your day, and see how it feels for you and how it's resonating and what it brings up. And I felt like it was a doorway into healing and peace for me to use this deck. The imagery, again, is soft. The colors are saturated, but not necessarily bright. And again, I love the art style in this deck. It was comforting and soothing to me. I also finished up The Great Work. So this is a year-long workbook where you go through, and this is someone's life work. This is Tiffany Lazick. Tiffany Lazick created this book, and she just poured herself into this book. So it takes a year to do, and I think I'm going to do a formal review on this book However, I was finishing it up, and I did this with a group of ladies. So we spent the year together, growing together and becoming intimate with women all over the world. And it was just something I had invited friends on Instagram, just, hey, who wants to join me? And I just trusted the universe to bring the right people into this group, and it really was. It was such a powerful group of women. But this book, it's such a wonderful framework. If you are looking to explore the chakras and also the alchemical process, plus different forms of divination, like every month has a different form of divination that it covers. And there's, like I said, they cover a chakra and they cover some portion of the alchemical process in it. It's just beautiful. It has journaling prompts for the days of the week. But it's not difficult or overwhelming. This book was really good, you guys. It's really good. If you're looking for something like a workbook to do for the year, this is fabulous and transformational. And so it was kind of neat to be at the end of that, right at the beginning of the month, and feel like I had accomplished something, because I have to tell you, I don't always finish a book. I just don't, unless it's fiction. Some of these books I'll be reading, my nonfiction books I'm reading for years. Which brings me to another favorite book that I want to share, which is the Book of Beasties. And this month I was visited by owl several times in my journeys out walking. And I was also visited by hawk. Hawk is kind of a regular. Also skunk. A wonderful story that ties into this whole thing with my mother. At the beginning of the month, I went out to our bus. We have a school bus, an old school bus that farm interns used to live in once upon a time. And it is just filled with stuff. And when my mother died, I basically just took boxes and boxes and boxes of her things and I put it over there. And I just couldn't face it. It'll be 10 years in June. And so I went over there and went into the bus, and I thought to myself, I will go over because I need to face this. And I went over there, and there was this skunk on the porch of our bus in midday. I mean, like, that is bizarre. And it was out on the bus, and it was like on the porch, and it was sunning itself. It was just like really enjoying itself and sunning itself. And I was like, wow. So I kind of had this moment where I sat about, 15, 20 feet away, probably more like 20 feet away. I have been sprayed more than once by a skunk here on the farm. And I just kind of sat with it and sat in the sun, and I felt like this was a beautiful exchange. And so bringing me back, before I tell the rest of that story, the Book of Beasties, this is a wonderful reference book. If you yourself are someone who is connected to animals and frequently sees them as signs and omens or has encounters with animals, I can't recommend this enough. It's by Sarah Bamford Seidelman. And this book goes through, and it's just beautiful the way that it has a main portion where it talks about the animal itself. It has keywords at the top. It kind of has a little narrative at the top as well. And then it goes through aligning affirmations, the chakras, the beastly practices for it, the vocation of that animal, or in relationship to vocation, wellness, creativity, relating to it, and love. And then there's always this little sort of, if this animal is your totem or your beastie, primal beastie, then this. And this is a great book. So I always spend a lot of time when I have an encounter with an animal, I come home and I immediately refer to this book. So I did want to share it too, because I think it's an excellent reference book to have. Back to my story though. I came back to the bus. There was just piles and piles of stuff, and there was stuff in there that I have no idea why I would have kept it. But I had some really profound revelations, and those were that sometimes we hold on to ideas of who someone is or what they are, and when we sit with our love for them, we realize that those things are really not present. And so that was a big deal for me. I would say this month in many ways was sort of like if you could sandwich my head between the 9 of Swords and the 10 of Swords, that was kind of where I was at for the first part of the month as I made the transition to letting go, to really letting go of my mother in some ways and letting go of those things. I mean, it was half a dumpster of stuff and I'm not even done, that I got rid of, and I took a bunch of stuff to Goodwill. But, so often we file away or we hoard ideas about other people because it makes us feel safe about who they are and who we are. And it's just cosmic junk within us. It's clouding. And so it was so refreshing. And Goat Moon is a time for letting go and cleaning things out. It was so refreshing to let go of that and realize just how powerful my connection with my mother was. And I do feel like the more stuff I threw away, the more I grew closer to my mother, to my lineage, to the beauty of what she gifted me as a parent, as a guide in this life, in this world, and also closer to her ability to continue to guide me. And so, if you have someone out there that you've let go of, I just want to encourage you that it's always layers, and that maybe you have something that you're holding on to. Could be resentments, could be even, ideas of who they are that are standing in the way of you receiving the beauty and power of who they are once they have transitioned on. And this was a very powerful revelation for me. And I just, I'm sharing it because I know that maybe somebody out there needs to hear it. Or maybe there's somebody alive in your life that you have, and you have certain ideas that you're holding about them, and you're keeping them from being in the present, being in the now with you. And it's actually keeping you from being in the now and being present with their magic, what it is that they bring to this earthly realm and to yourself and to your own interaction. I believe that we are mirrors for one another. So I try to kind of clean out my inventory of people on a regular basis so that I can truly receive from the people around me and see the reflection of myself that the universe is offering, and to honor what is being given to me in the moment. So one of the profound symbols for me and transitions that I made this month was in my planner system. And so some of you are going to be bored by this, but I feel like this is very symbolic of what happened for me this month. So this was my old planner. It's huge, as you can tell. It's 8.5 by 11, and it was just so big and cumbersome. And I would try to take that thing with me everywhere. And it was mid-month when I finally felt that there was a huge weight, psychic weight lifted off me, and I was really more open to condensing my energy so that I could really focus my soul, my spirit, in a way that allowed me to release magic in a very profound way, a much more concentrated and authentic way. As I was releasing all of this stuff, it was like I became more laser focused. And again, I shifted. It was about mid-month when I felt like I shifted more into that 10 of Swords, where it's dead, it's over, it's gone. It's dead, it's over, it's gone. You don't need to be doing this. This is way too much. This is way too heavy of a consciousness. This is so big and cumbersome. And so I switched over to this. I caved, you guys. I got a Hobonichi. If you're a paper junkie, then you know what this is. But you can see that this is, it's a lot smaller. And I felt like this was so freeing to move over to a planner of this kind. I love this planner. And again, there's a direct correlation to this. This is really representational of what is happening with me and the clearing of the clutter in my mind. And it was about this time that I began to delve into Ellen of the Ways. I'm not sure who out there is familiar with Ellen of the Ways. For me, this month was about sunrises. I was up with the sun and out there with the sun and really bonding with myself and the freshness and newness of what could be, which is really, I know that you don't think of the Ten of Swords that way, but really what the Ten of Swords is like it's over and there's the dawning of a new day ahead. So I spent a lot of time out on the farm in the mornings looking at the sunrises, but also looking at the sunsets. Both of these are like between times, and it's definitely my power space is the between time. There's a neutrality that falls across the land, and it's something that really calls to my heart in the depths of who I am. And then I began to focus on Ellen of the Ways, and I love this particular piece of artwork was the one that I worked with. And what I love about this is that you see the labyrinth. You see her weaving the labyrinth. And is she pulling the thread or is she weaving the thread? And to me, the labyrinth is both, that we descend into the labyrinth and we wind into ourselves and then we unwind as we come out. And so to me, Ellen came in during the mid-month and she kind of guided me. At this point, I felt like I had walked the labyrinth into the center of myself, and I was discovering a part of myself that I would be walking out of the labyrinth, which is what I did the second half of the month, where I began to walk my way out of the labyrinth and discover the knowledge of myself as I approach my 50th birthday. Walking out of the labyrinth for me is about assimilating the power of what I've gathered for myself over these last 50 years and releasing those shoulds and have tos, and allowing myself to come into a space where I do what I want. I just want to be myself and be honest with people in my own vulnerability, in offering that to the people in my life, to you on YouTube. And so, sharing that is, I just feel like I don't have anything to really prove anymore other than I can be myself, and I'm happy to spend the next 50 years doing that. I don't know what kind of when I think about the first 50 years was sort of gathering information. So Ellen of the Ways, back to Ellen of the Ways, she appeared to me and has spent the last part of February, second half of February with me. And I don't know who will arise for me next, but I do have her out with me, and I do look at her daily and kind of think about the beauty of the path that emerges before us when we dare to step forward. It's there. And how at some point we're going to reach the center and turn around and retrace our steps, which is what the Hermit card is about. Retracing our steps back into the world in order to bring the beauty of what we have found at the center as we reach the center. And it's not just the center, it's the walk to the center and the walk back. And again, retracing our steps in order to understand ourselves and see that reflection from a different angle. Because when you walk the labyrinth, you're walking one way. And when you return, you're walking another, giving yourself another vantage point over the same ground that you covered. Two final books to mention here. And again, if you've made it this far, leave me a comment down below as to what books you read this month. I'd love to hear. So 2 more books. I bought Daily Magic by Judica Isles, and I began reading that book and using it daily. And it is a very simple book that has where it talks about kind of like that day of the year and an idea for, some of them have ideas for magical practice that day or spells or herbal crafting, and they all have like a saint of the day. I think this is a wonderful book if you need something to just kind of wake up to and, have your morning time with, and reflect on what's going on around the world and the different practices that are out there. I did, however, send it back. After sitting with it for a week or so, I thought, this is not how I do magic. This is not my magical practice. My magical practice is born out of my interaction with my life and its needs and my vulnerability and the real world. And it's very nature-based. And so most of my magic takes place on walks or outside. Most of those exchanges are between trees or sky or bodies of water. And so the way in which I work is just not formulated by a book. And I'm not, although I love Judica and her compendium of spells, and I do have her Book of Spirits, her Encyclopedia of Spirits, which is really good as well. It wasn't for me. So I did send that back. And then I was rereading and had finished, I've been doing it since December, 78 Degrees of Wisdom, which is a great beginner book. However, I found as I was rereading this book that and I've said this before, I feel that the body of knowledge, the body of tarot is an expanding body of knowledge. If it weren't, then it would be stagnant and it would be non-dynamic and it would be something that was non-relatable. And I just found some of the ideas about these cards antiquated, that they did not match my personal experience of the tarot. I love it. I think it's a great base book for beginners, and I was happy that I reread it and went through the different cards. I mean, the different chapters on all the different cards. But it was beautiful for me to see how far my tarot practice has come and how I feel that the best way to bond with a card is through just regular use of the cards so that you can make connections between the energies that you are exchanging in your life and the experiences and how they're playing out, and to really ground yourself in the meaning of those cards through your own experience is, I think, the most powerful way. If you made it this far, then you know how to find my other videos. If you don't, here's some right here you can check out. Or you can check me out on my other channel over here where I read tarot. Until we meet again, may your life be blessed with the wholeness of personal insight, and may you be brave enough to let that light just obliterate what is no longer you.